So hi guys, my name is Yash. I'm a ECBA certified business analyst. So today we are going to talk about a topic that is what is requirement life cycle. Requirement life cycle describes how requirements are managed and maintained from their initial conception to retirement. It ensures that business needs are accurately captured, requirements are traced and reused as needed, changes are assessed, and final approval is obtained before development. So it's basically what we have discussed in previous videos, but it's more of a requirement life cycle, which um, it describes how we have to manage requirements, how we have to prioritize requirements, how we have to trace requirements, how we have to approve requirements. We'll look it in further slides, but yeah, that's what is a requirement life cycle. So let's move forward. As you can see, life cycle flow summary. It begins with a business need. So a stakeholder brings a business need. For example, a stakeholder wants a website for payment. You know, so he brings that need. He has that need to make that website. So, for example, we want to launch a mobile payments app. And continues through development, tracing, maintenance, prioritization, business analyst. He gathers the requirements from the stakeholder, understands the requirements, analyzes the requirements, traces the requirements, then at the end of the day prioritizes prioritizes the requirement, prioritizes the feasibility and everything, and then approves the requirement, right? So it continues and then it ends is approved when the solution is delivered and requirements are retired. So yeah, we'll see that in the further slides in detail. So as you can see here are the 5 key tasks in requirement lifecycle. So first is trace requirements, ensures requirement linked to business goal, solution, components and test cases. Example is login feature traced to user authentication business goal and related UPI and API specs. So why is it important to trace requirements? I think it's very important because sometimes the stakeholders may say something and they won't agree afterwards. So it's very important to confirm and trace requirements till the time you are absolutely sure that this is what they want. So that's why it's like ensure requirements linked to the business goals, solution, components and test cases. So yeah, that's what it means. uh, so let's go to the maintain requirements. Maintain, by what is maintain requirements? You just maintain the requirements. You keep the requirements up to date across versions and ensure reuse. So what happens is normally, I'll give you the example: email verification used in both sign up and password reset model. So what I think from maintain requirements is basically there are some requirements which can be reused in some other projects too, not in just one projects. Like email verification, it can be reused in some other projects, right? So that's why we maintain these requirements. We keep the requirements up to date across maybe versions of the same website or a different website. So yeah, then we prioritize requirements. Super important. Focuses on high value urgent requirement first. So what we do is that we first look at the MVP. Okay, what is the MVP? Most valuable product. So MVP must include UPI payments, loyalty points can come later. So basically, yeah, the UPI payments is the priority. That's why we prioritize it, right? Loyalty points and every single thing can come later, in the later part. So the first priority, obviously, for the stakeholder would be a UPI payment, right? So that's why prioritize requirement is also very important. Then we assess requirement changes, evaluates the impact of any change request. So whenever we meet stakeholders and whenever we are in a stakeholder meeting, if a stakeholder asks for a certain change, it's very very important to assess that requirement changes, right? Assess that requirements change. So if a stakeholder asks for a biometric login, check cost, risk, and feasibility. So that is very important. Like if a stakeholder asks for an unusual request, right? Um, like he wants a banner or a logo or some feature um, which is great, but it's not feasible at that moment of time. So we have to assess that requirement. Yeah, so that's assess requirement changes and then approve requirements. At the end of the day, we have to get the final sign off from the key stakeholders. That's what is like, if you have watched my previous videos, we have discussed there the impact analysis. Once the requirement changes and everything is done, impact analysis is done, and once the impact analysis is done, we approve the requirements. We get the final sign off from the key stakeholders, and PM, QA, lead, and client approve the scope of the release, and then it goes to developer. So yeah, these are the 5 key tasks in the requirement lifecycle. So trace requirements, we trace the requirements. Okay, why we trace the requirements? We trace the requirements because some requirements can be missed, right? So it's to make sure that the requirements are up to date. We maintain the requirements. Then we prioritize the requirements because we focus on the high value thing, which is the MVP, like UPI payments is the MVP. The loyalty points or different features are not the MVP, so we don't focus on that. We prioritize UPI payments first. And assess requirement changes, as I told you before, is we evaluate the impact of any change request. So we evaluate the risk, we evaluate the feasibility, we evaluate the cost, every single thing. And approve requirements is the last and final step, which is very very important to get the sign off from the key stakeholder, and then the development starts of the project. Perfect. So here I have this simulation, which is a PayGlide, a mobile payment app for small retailer. So here you are a business analyst on a project called PayGlide. It's a mobile payment platform targeting local Kirana stores to enable UPI card and QR based payments. The goal is to launch a minimal viable product MVP in 3 months. Let's simulate how requirement lifecycle management works in this case. Okay, so you're ready? So step 1 is to trace requirement, obviously. So the business requirement is enable digital payments for all customer transaction. Functional requirement is users should be able to scan a QR code and make UPI payment. So if you remember, what is a functional requirement is what a system should do, right? So what a system should do, it should ensure that the user is able to scan the QR code and make the UPI payment. Okay, so as you can see, the UI screen, API integration, test case, and business goal. Business goal is reduce cash handling by 40% in 6 months. So for the online Kirana stores, if you see normally in India, now they are accepting UPS, but mostly before they were in a lot of cash business, right? So PayGlide basically is for that, is to make sure that they shift to the QR code system and it becomes feasible for them. So yeah, you use a requirement traceability matrix in Excel or Jira advanced roadmaps. Okay, interesting. So step 2 is maintain requirements, as we know. Midway discovery. Midway you realize the same QR functionality is also needed in loyalty redemption. Okay. Reuse study. You reuse the QR code scanner model and update your documentation to reflect both use cases. Marked it as reusable component in Confluence. Version controlled the requirements using Gitbook. Okay, interesting. So basically, midway you realize the same QR code functionality also needed in loyalty redemption. So uh, why we maintain this requirement is it's so important, right? If you understand from this perspective, like we first traced the requirement, right? We got the requirement and we know that, QR code, the retailers have, this is retailer should like, the people who are purchasing from the kirana stores should scan the QR code and, pay the kirana person. Now we have a loyalty point system. Once you pay that, the loyalty point system. So from that trace requirement, we came to a manage requirements because we had this requirement. So we managed it well, right? So let's go to the third one, that is a prioritize requirement. You hold a backlog grooming session with stakeholders. They vote using the Moscow method. So if you know, Moscow method is must have, should have, could have, would have. So must have is very very important. Should have is okay. Could have is very okay, and would have is not okay. It's okay. I don't know how to explain that, but yeah, must have UPI payments MVP. It's very very important, very very important. QR scanning transaction history. Could have is gift card cashback offers. Then would have loyalty points and stuff like that. They come at the last moment of the points. Once the app and every single thing is developed, they come in the later stages. You flag cashback as low priority for MVP and document it for future releases. Yes. So first we prioritize the requirements or based on high importance. So high importance are UPI payments, QR scanning, transaction history, and lower importance are gift cards, cashback offers. Then we go to assess requirement changes. Mid project, the CEO says, let's add biometric login for better security. Your action: conduct impact analysis using Jira. Hardware dependency, new hardware dependency on fingerprint sensors. Timeline impact, extra 2 weeks needed for development. Cost impact, cost increases of 2 lakhs. Not feasible for most viable product, pushed to post launch roadmap. So this is so important. Like in the simulation, if you understand why do we assess requirement changes, like the CEO says, okay, let's just add a biometric, but now as a business analyst you have to assess, okay, what would be the cost, what would be the timeline would increase, the cost would increase, the dependency of hardware would increase, because you talk with the developer and you understand, okay, but right now, for this moment of time, for launching the app, I think just the uh, UPI payment system, the QR code scanning is important, right? The what we say, that biometric login and everything can be done later, because it increases the cost, increases the timeline and everything. So the project also, kind of moves a little slow. So it shouldn't happen, right? So it should be on time. So now we move to a step 5. That is the final point. That's approve requirements. So before the development starts, you conduct a sign-off meeting, conduct a final meeting, and you understand everything, like, because you have traced requirements, you have maintained requirements, you have assessed requirement changes, you have prioritized requirements, and now while approving requirements, you have to go to product owner, tech lead, QA manager, business sponsor. You have to ask them, this is the requirement I have gathered, I have properly maintained, I have looked at the minor things, and now for the final task, we go to the product owner, tech lead, and QA manager. They approve it, and that's how it goes to development. So you also get the digital signatures for proof. So what you just showed is trace is link requirements to business goal. Okay, maintain requirements is keep the requirements updated and reusable. Prioritize is focus on high value requirements first. Assess changes is evaluate impact of change request. Approve is get stakeholder sign off. So you have demonstrated the end-to-end life of a requirement from business need to sign off with real collaboration tools and decision making. So kudos guys. So the essence of requirement lifecycle. Requirement lifecycle is not just documentation. It's how we bring a business goal to life. Manage its changes, align stakeholders, and ensure we deliver value with every feature. So it's very very important requirement lifecycle. to trace requirements, to maintain requirements, to prioritize requirements, to assess requirement changes, and then finally to approve it. Because that's how we bring the business goal to life. And that's how we manage the stakeholders, because stakeholders are difficult. They can give you any requirement, right? So we, to get the proper requirement, we have to go through this requirement life cycle, and to align the stakeholders and ensure that we deliver value, because whatever projects we make or we take on, at the end of the day, it should provide clarity, and it should provide value. Because before clarity, if it's not clear, the project is going to be a mess. So it should be absolutely clear, and that's how. That's why it's very important. Okay, I hope you guys learned something. Thank you so much for watching. See ya.